What is up, Internet? It is I, Caleb Black, and this isn't a Let's Play. Um, yeah. I'm gonna tentatively call these cigarette breaks. How about it? Maybe that's a catchy title, I don't know. But, since I am playing Sekiro on this channel, let's address a conversation, we'll call it, charitably, that we'll call it a conversation that the gaming industry slash, YouTube, internet, whatever. I don't even know what to call this thing that I'm technically a part of anymore. It's about easy mode. So yeah, you might be able to infer my position on this just based on how much fun I'm having with the game. Uh, I I don't think From Software needs an easy mode in any of their games, be it Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. They don't need an easy mode in Armored Core or Tenchu. Any of the games that they've been involved with creating, they don't need an easy mode for it. And I'll be happy to argue the points that are made in favor of an easy mode. Uh, when I just try and argue my point that it doesn't need an easy mode without addressing the arguments that have been made, it might seem a little intellectually dishonest. It might seem deceptive. And it's too easy to dismiss my opinion as, oh, you're just a fanboy. Blah, blah. First of all, I am not one of those get good people. I hate, hate when people say get good, scrub, without any humor to it. And you can say it tongue in cheek, you can say it ironically, that's fine, because that's what it was at the beginning of time when Dark Souls, I was going to say Demon Souls, but nobody plays that. Um, when Dark Souls came about and the get good meme was inspired, that's what it was. It was a meme. It was supposed to be funny. Then the negative aspects of gaming culture kind of co-opted it and tainted the humor with po-faced ignorance. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I'm snarky, I'm serious most of the time. I'm in my regular life. I try and keep it light for my Let's Plays, because, just nobody wants the misery guts constantly bitching. I'm not Darkside Phil. I can actually play games, and I'm not a whiny bitch all the time. Just most of the time. And I try and do that off my channel when I can. I don't think there should be an easy mode. I'm never going to tell anybody to get good without an ounce of humor. I don't actually use that as a serious criticism to anybody who has trouble with Soulsborne game. My advice to anybody who wants to get into this franchise, anybody who wants to play this, the whole point is to die. It's Simon, but with swords and monsters. That's all it is. It's pattern recognition. It's pattern recognition and some reflexes. First of all, the only argument that I've heard that actually makes sense for an easy mode, the only one that I will give respect to, is it won't take away your enjoyment. An easy mode in a game isn't zero sum. If they put in an easy mode, if you don't want to play on easy mode, you don't have to play on easy mode. That's the beauty of having options, is you can choose not to partake in that option. However, this is why I think that argument can be defeated. It's the Dark Souls of arguments for an easy mode for Dark Souls, certainly, but just like Dark Souls, you can beat that boss. Now, it is reasonable to say that, what's the harm in putting in an easy mode? It's not going to take away your enjoyment of the game if you play it on a harder difficulty. Well, that's true. That is a true statement. You don't have to play on an easy mode. The problem with that is assuming that the developers, in this case From Software, have the budget and time to balance an easy mode. Now you're thinking, well, how hard could it be to just, you know, change some numbers around in the code. Like, well, instead of doing 100 damage with that strike, why not knock it down to 50? Why not just give you more chances to revive? Why not do this? Why not do that? In the case of Sekiro. Well, the reason for that is, one, if you notice the attention to detail and the craftsmanship that go into Sekiro without an easy mode, do you think that the developer would half-ass an easy mode? No, they wouldn't. They would want to make sure that it's still a satisfying experience for people playing. Also, you've got to remember that the Soulsborne franchise is niche. Fanboys don't want to admit that it's niche, but it is. It's a niche game. Not everybody wants to get slapped in the balls every time they play a game. Some of us weirdos enjoy that. A lot of us weirdos like it because we remember playing video games back when we were wee. You know, when we were youngins, when we had to beg for quarters at the arcade to play something. You know, when there was a live system, when you couldn't save your game, when you had to write down codes to start over from where you left off. A lot of us growing up who've been playing video games since we were, 8, remember games being harder because they kind of had to be profitable at the time. A lot of older games were ports of arcade games, and the arcade game business model was make sure you put in some cheap deaths in there because we need to make money on these cabinets. We need to make sure that the gameplay loop is satisfying, and so satisfying that when we do kill you arbitrarily, you want to plunk another quarter into that cabinet. That was gaming's roots when it became commercial, when it actually started to become an industry, when it stopped being a project for college computer science nerds and actually turned into an industry. It became something else. It used to be Pong, and then it became Frogger. You know, Frogger is a deceptively simple game, but it's pretty easy to die in it, and you only have 3 chances to get your frog across the road. You know, that's a fraction of gaming history for you, just to give it some context. So, From Software is a smaller development company. They have to go to people like Bandai Namco, or as I like to call them, Namkai Bando, and they have to go to distributors like Activision to get their games published because they cannot self-publish their games. They're not a big enough country. They're not a big enough company. They can't afford to do it all by themselves and still have the market penetration. Ooh, penetration. They can't do it on their own. I mean, they might be able to at this point because they do have solid name recognition, but it still probably wouldn't be financially feasible for them to. So, adding an easy mode, basically changing the difficulty from just having one set difficulty, it increases the development time and the cost to the developers to make that product, which means that if they have a deadline from their publisher, that means that there's going to be more crunch. That means there's going to be more testing needed. That means that there's more stuff that they have to juggle in order to bring that to gold, to take it across the finish line. It's expensive to have multiple game difficulties in your game because you ideally would want to balance them all. We've all played a game that's got an easy, normal, and hard mode, and those of us who like a challenge, like figure out what the base level challenge is, like, yeah, I could probably beat this on hard. Oh, I could probably beat this on hardcore, actually. Have you ever played a bad, higher difficulty setting? I have a perfect example for you. The Force Unleashed 2. Their maximum difficulty, back when I used to be an achievement whore, I played it on the hardest difficulty after I beat it on normal because I figured, I knew the game. And it was just as easy as normal. The only difference was I had to start over arbitrarily more often. It was annoying. It wasn't challenging. It wasn't more fun. It was just a slog. Normal difficulty was manageable as far as time investment. It was a terribly padded and tiny game compared to the first one. The story was stupid. there's plenty of problems with the Force Unleashed 2, but the fact that they phoned in the highest difficulty setting on the game was disappointing because the game was so tiny, and I did have fun using crazy force powers. It was like, yeah, it's like a 10-hour game, and that was me taking my time. So I figured, I want the, hardcore difficulty achievement. So I played through, and I mostly spent that time being annoyed because it was poorly balanced. It didn't add difficulty, it just added irritation. And you'll know that if they had an easy mode, they would be obligated to make a normal and a hard because that's industry standard. So you're not just adding an easy mode, you would also be adding a hard mode. And don't think for a second that the publisher, Activision, wouldn't have tried to coerce them in making an ultra hard difficulty so they could sell it later. Activision's just scummy enough to do that. I doubt From would let them get away with that, but I mean, I don't know how they negotiate their contracts. I was surprised that there were no microtransactions in Sekiro in the first place because Activision was their publisher. But I guess Activision occasionally knows when to not fuck something up for themselves and for their developers, so I mean, I guess good for Activision. The next argument is, you should respect your players more and make it more accessible to the normies out there. Well, like I said, it's a niche game. It's not niche because of its supreme difficulty. It's niche because of the subject matter, the way they tell the story, the combat engine, even. That's what truly makes it niche. Not everybody wants to play those types of games. Bloodborne was niche because it was cosmic horror Dark Souls. And Dark Souls was niche because it was, Western fantasy. No, not everybody wants to play those games. Most casual players, and I'm not going to say casual like I've tasted something terrible and I'm spitting it out of my mouth. Casual players usually aren't into fantasy role-playing games. They're not usually into Lovecraftian horror video games. They're not usually into feudal Japanese stab 'em ups. Most are Call of Duty players. That's it. So that's why it's niche. It's a very specific game genre that not everybody's into. So off the bat, even if there was an easy mode, even if it was easier for a casual player to get involved with the game, most wouldn't even bother looking at it because it's not the type of setting that they like. Most casual gamers like sci-fi and just straight up modern action. They like Uncharted. They like Call of Duty. They like Battlefield. And if that's not what they like, then they are probably not playing on a console. They're probably playing on their cell phone, and they're probably playing uh, color matching games. So yeah, I don't know a lot of Bejeweled players who were chomping at the bit to play Sekiro and then suddenly became disappointed because the game was hard. I've not heard that anywhere. So I'd say that From Software respects its players quite a bit. The reason why they respect their players quite a bit is that they made a high quality, functioning product that was feature complete upon release. They charged a reasonable price for the amount of work that they put into it, and they didn't put in any freaking microtransactions. You don't have to buy revives for $1 a pop. And I think I just heard an Activision CEO somewhere come in their pants when I said something like that. So I'm going to try and move on from this topic. But as far as respect, I'd say From Software respects their players a lot more than most other development teams and production companies out there. They're not trying to milk you dry with their game. They wanted to create an engaging product with a story that they wanted to tell in the way that they wanted to tell it. That is respect. They weren't pandering to anyone. Pandering is a massive sign of disrespect. And they know that the people who want to pay to play And the people that are really into their franchises and will come back for more, most of them don't want an easy mode. And if there's one thing that any good, savvy business person knows, it's don't alienate your existing customers to try and get hypothetical customers. If they wanted to do a game with an easy mode in it, they would come up with a completely new intellectual property to do it. That's why the whole respect customers thing doesn't really hold water. I was a little annoyed by the whole you gotta respect your customers, you gotta respect your players and put her in easy mode. It's like, you're not the normal customer. Most of these game journos that demand an easy mode aren't From Software customers. They didn't buy the game. Their outlet got the game for free, and they were pissed because they sucked at the game and had to review it. Color me unsympathetic to game journalists' plight when it comes to playing difficult games and having to get a review out in a week. I write, I have deadlines that I need to meet, and yeah, it sucks, but it's your job. You're getting paid to do it, so do your job. Bitch to your friends. Don't bitch to your readers. Not unless you've actually got a compelling argument to bitch. If it's like a customer complaint is like, these people are ripping us off, or this game is not worth the money because it's basically an asset flip, or something like that, yeah. Or these microtransactions are predatory and horrible, or the design of this game makes it not fun to play because the controls suck, or the camera doesn't pay attention to where you are, or if there's something less subjectively wrong with the product itself. It's like, it constantly crashes when you get to this point. There's riddled with game-breaking bugs. The game isn't actually a game. It's a shell of a game to make you buy more DLC later. Those are good reasons to bitch about a game. But it's too hard, 'cause I'm a four-thumbed nitwit. I can't sympathize with you on that one. Sorry. It just sounds like whining at that point. But yeah, the last argument, the one that I find truly, truly offensive, is the think of the disabled people who want to play your game. It needs to be more accessible for them. What? What? No, 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 no. Do not conflate accessibility options with difficulty. The things that make games harder for people who are disabled, I'm not saying that as a pejorative term. It's the only one that I know. Forgive me. But a game's difficulty is not what prevents a disabled player from being able to play the game. Accessibility. There's red-green colorblind people who cannot see red or green color spectrum. So if you make a lot of your major user interface options red or green and they're important to gameplay, then you need to add an option to make it easier for those people to see what's going on and understand what prompts you're giving them so they can actually play. That would be an accessibility option. Making sure that the audio-visual feedback isn't so integral to the game that the audio part will get you killed if you can't hear. Make sure that there's enough visual stuff on screen to prompt players, and the rumble feature on the controller to let deaf players know what's going on. That is an accessibility option. Making sure that they can follow the story because there's subtitles there. That is an accessibility option. If you lack motor function in your hands, being able to map the buttons to for a controller configuration that you can actually, do the way you're supposed to do it, that's an accessibility option. Making sure that if somebody is using a specialized controller, that they can make sure that all the buttons on their specialized equipment work. Supporting different controller setups, that is an accessibility option. But dumbing down the difficulty for people is not accessibility. Don't conflate the two. That is intellectually dishonest. It's disgusting. And this is the main reason why it pisses me off so much. It's because these game journalists who level these accusations, they don't actually care about the disabled. They want to dress up their argument because the first two that I mentioned, I'm sure there's a couple more, but I kind of stopped paying attention to it all after a while because the disabled people argument really pissed me off. Because I know people who love to game but can't use their hands well. They've got arthritis, or they've got repetitive stress injury in their hands, or the list goes on. Like the main thing is like where you have to mash a button. Those are usually the things that really hold back players who don't have the best motor function. People have problems with that. It's the mashing, having to do that kind of repeated action very, very quickly. Even people who have normal motor function have difficulty with mashing. So like that is an accessibility thing. And the industry seems to have gotten it somewhat, so you don't see that as much in games anymore. That's a step forward as far as letting other people who aren't. I don't know another way to put this. The people who aren't disabled and people who are disabled should all be able to play the game. It's controllers. It's certain industry standards that really aren't helping, that hold people back in that area. It's not difficulty. And there are plenty of other options for people who want to play games casually. And yeah, it sucks to not be a part of the conversation and not share in that gaming experience because, anytime a Soulsborne game comes out, the hardcore gamers get all excited and we've all got something to talk about that not everybody can participate in. It seems exclusive, but it's not. It's not exclusive. If you're not into having to die 1,000 times to learn the patterns and figure out when you should block or when you should dodge or when you should use a certain shinobi tool or when you should just run away so you can get a sneak attack and make it easier on yourself, there's a lot of depth and strategy to Sekiro combat that doesn't rely on you being god tier reflexes. There's plenty of options for people. It's a matter of learning how from wants you to play the game. And then as long as you're playing in that way, you could probably beat the game without much trouble. They're not hard, they're intimidating. That's it. So yeah, it pisses me off when somebody tries to hold up somebody who isn't complaining, by the way. I don't know where they got this idea. I haven't seen a lot of outrage from disabled gamers saying, oh, this game needs an easy mode. I don't recall ever hearing that argument being made until some salty game journos brought that up. It's like they were casting about for an excuse to support their opinion that nobody liked. It's like, okay, so, like, it doesn't hurt you argument is so reasonable that most people don't even pay attention to it. It's not a controversial take, so nobody's going to listen to that one. Respect your players. And then that argument is also equally debunked. What's the last one? I'm a shitty virtue signaling, callous game journo. What do I do? Disabled people. They're hapless, defenseless. I'll use them as a shield for my argument. Screw you. Screw you and the most uncomfortable hole you have. Honestly. These people are defenseless, so I'm going to use them as a weapon against people who argue against me. Fuck you. Seriously. That is so disgusting. Don't pretend to care about people to win an argument when it's clear, absolutely positively clear, that you don't give a second thought to them outside of this argument. And if you don't believe my take on that, just look at their Twitter feeds, look at their other articles. Most of them are able-bodied, white 20-somethings who don't have to worry about money. who've gone to 4 to 6 years worth of college and earned a liberal arts degree that they could never get any other type of job for. They're pissed off because they're not working for an actual outlet. They're stuck working for games journalism. Not that they would actually be able to do actual journalism in the first place. Out of all of games journalism, I think there's like 2 writers that are actual journalists. Maybe 2 that I can think of. As you might be able to tell, I don't think Sekiro needs an easy mode. I don't think it needs an easy mode because the developer made the game that they wanted to make, and they're not condescending enough to go, "Oh, you poor little crap out. I know you want to play the game. Here you go." You know what? If you're not good at Sekiro but you want to get involved in the conversation, it's called the internet. There are Let's Plays. There's wikis. Find a content creator that you like who does lore or who likes to play games, that's better at playing games than you, and watch them. Watch VatiVidya for your lore, you know? This is the first one I came up with. There's a plenty of lore videos out there for all of the Soulsborne games so far. If you're not good enough at it, if you don't feel like practicing and, earning your kills in Sekiro, watch a Let's Play. Watch lore videos. Read a wiki. Talk to somebody who has played the game. You can still join in on the conversation. You can still have fun with it. I don't like playing Five Nights at Freddy, but I think the story's interesting. So I'm not going to sit through a Five Nights at Freddy game and be pissed off at it because I don't like jump scare games. I'm going to watch videos on YouTube that talk about the story, the only interesting part of that franchise, in my opinion. I'm going to watch that and enjoy that. And I'll be able to get the jokes that people make when they're referencing it. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Purple guy, yeah, that's neat. I have never played more than 10 minutes of a Five Nights at Freddy game because I find them tedious. But I like the story. So did I bitch about Five Nights at Freddy not being a game that I wanted to play? No. I watched YouTube and enjoyed the story that way. And I didn't have to pay money for a game that I would not enjoy playing and regret purchasing. That's the beauty of the internet, people. Anyway, at this point, I think I'm preaching to the choir. So, I know this isn't my normal content. Thank you for enjoying this cigarette break with me. And, yeah. I'll have another Let's Play up at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Adios, amigos. This is Caleb Black. Peace.